Hey there, this is Melody, the massage therapist, and I'm the last person that should be telling you how to paint. But I've been married, because I'm not a painter. I've been a massage therapist for 24 years. But my husband has been painting for 40 years, 40-ish years. And so I have some tips for girls, guys, anybody that has never painted. And the first thing is don't be afraid. It's just paint. And you can always paint over. So I wonder how I'm going to do these tips. Anyways, this is my dream for 7 to 10 years, so I'm super excited. So let's get started. Hey, so my first tip is you move things away from the walls. You keep puppies out of the room, potentially. You cover everything. If you don't have drops, I would recommend if you don't have drop cloths, like old shower curtains. But if you use sheets, if you dribble paint on your sheets, it will bleed through your sheet. So try not to use sheet, maybe plastic, like sheets of plastic that they have at the store. So wear the oldest things possible. This is like 30 years old. Let me think. 30 something years old. Anyways, nope, don't want to say Wear old clothes because paint does not come out. Pull things away from the wall and then you cover things. So now I'm going to cover things up and paint smarter, not harder. Okay, I'm going to start covering it up. Okay, so when you have holes in your walls, you take a little cork and you squeeze some out. And these are super cheap to get a cork gun. And you squeeze some into your finger and you cover the holes. And you don't even have to let it dry before you start painting. But by the time we start painting, it'll be dry. If you have a place where you're gonna put nails back, like in the exact same hole, you just leave the nail there, and then when you roll, it will be easy to see where you want that picture to be hung back up on. So in the old days, I remember using toothpaste to cover the little nail holes, but don't use toothpaste unless you absolutely have to. Shh, but we won't tell anybody. Okay, our little secret, if you use toothpaste. I'll be back. When you have blue tape, there's only certain things you need blue tape for. You don't need it to do the cutting in. You can just use regular masking tape because it's way cheaper. Shh, but you didn't hear that from me. So when you're gonna do a wall, you dust off the baseboard, and you're going to use tape to go right up to the wall, right along the edge. And then you're going to have the drop cloth right up to the edge. So you don't need to have the paper masker if you don't have one. Paper maskers are great, but they're not necessarily necessary. So I'm going to talk about brushes for a second. Don't buy the $2 brush. Spend the $15 to $20 on, honestly, I don't remember what it's made. The bristles are made of. Shoot. Buy the $15 to $20 brush because you're gonna use it. Oh, this one's kind of big for my hand. There's different sizes. So we're gonna use this brush when the time comes. We're not gonna cut in with tape. We're gonna just use the brush at an angle, and it makes it super easy to cut in without taping off the sides. And if you have, like you want to do fancy stripes on a wall or something, you take a little masking tape and whatever your design is, and you put it on the wall, and you brush it like this to get that line, and then you peel it off, and you have a perfect little line, but you brush away from the tape. You don't do it like this, because then it's going to bleed behind the tape. Okay, I'll be back. A roller, you want a good roller that's called sheepskin. Don't get the 3 for $5 rollers. This one will last you for years if you get a good roller. Sheepskin, 1/2 inch. If it's a really textured wall, you want to get a thicker sheepskin, like a 3/4 inch. But for this wall with just a little bit of texture on it, this should be perfect. So your actual painting of a bedroom, let's say it's a 10 by 12 room, if like this is original paint and it's a flat, we're gonna go with a semi-gloss or a satin. A semi-gloss or satin, you can wipe down when it gets dirty and it'll clean it up. A flat paint, you can't wipe down, it like wipes the paint off. So this is actually going to be the accent wall, and when you have an accent wall, you want to cut in the like the other walls are going to be white and it's going to be a little brown. So you cut in the white first and you get it onto the accent wall, the paint, before, and let that dry, the cutting in dry, before you paint the accent wall. Otherwise, the white paint could smear into the accent wall. So you want to use semi-gloss. You rarely use a flat paint, in my opinion. Some people like a flat paint, but you can't, for little kids, semi-gloss is perfect. Okay. So we have a little bit of paint left over from another project, so I'm swirling it around a little bit. And when you're going to cut in, you don't use your 5-gallon bucket yet. You just use a little 2-gallon bucket and you pour a little paint into it, because you don't need all that weight of all the paint when you're going to be holding on to the can. So you take your brush and you do a nice little cleaning of the little lip there, so that there's no paint. Oops, flicked on myself. So there's no paint on here. So there's no paint in that little lip, and you put the cap back on. Oh, so you don't need a fancy key to open this either, and you just open it with a little screwdriver. All right, we'll be back. Hey guys, when you take your switch plates off, you take them off to paint, because if you don't, you get old crusty paint on the switch plate, and then we're going to scrape these off and reuse them. But then it's real easy to paint here, here, and here. So what you do is you cut in around this, and then when the wall's all done, then you very easily put the switch plate back on. Oh, and when you're screwing in the little screws, when you're done, it's really fun to make them up and down. The perfectionist in you will want the little screw lines going up and down. That's from an electrician's viewpoint. All right. After you've taped your baseboards and put drop cloths down, you're going to cut in the corners and on the ceiling. That's your first step. And this is the accent wall. And so what you're going to do is paint on your white wall, and don't worry about getting a little paint on your accent wall. You want it to go onto the accent wall. And for the ceiling, oh, by the way, thank you, Kayla, for being my camera girl. You want to turn it up? There we go. So for the ceiling, you want to get a little bit on the ceiling. You don't want to go up to the ceiling, because you'll see every cut, but we'll show you that on the accent wall. But you're going to cut onto the ceiling a teeny weeny bit because it's like an optical illusion, and you can't. Yeah, look, it's gonna look like a straight line unless you're right up to the wall and you look up and go, oh, that really is on the ceiling. But it's no big deal because no one's ever gonna be right up to the wall to look at that ceiling piece. So you go all the way up to the ceiling and a little bit on the ceiling for cutting it. So you cut in 2 inches, 2 inches, and this is our accent wall. So we do the accent wall last. You want to cut in right up to the, onto the accent wall a little bit, but you have to wait till the paint is dry before doing the accent wall, or it'll smear onto the other wall. And it's a rainier day today in Phoenix, so it takes a while to dry. So we're gonna have a fan going in a minute. Okay. So my biggest tip probably of all is this. Throw this away. Don't ever use a tray again. This little couple dollar grid is a lifesaver. Let me tell you. You pour your paint into a 5-gallon bucket. And I'm going to show you how to use the grid in a minute. Oh, and when you're done with a paintbrush, you put it in water to cover up the actual paintbrush itself. And then you let it soak till you're ready to clean it, and you just use a wire brush to clean your brushes, and you'll be able to hold on to them for a really long time. So you use the little brush again to get it out of the lip. And I'm going to add another gallon. I don't know if I said earlier, but when you have like a 10 by 12 room, I think I got sidetracked with using satin over flat. But you want to, there you go, using again. Oops, no, you can keep it, I don't care. You want to use about 1 gallon to 2 gallons when you have a 12 by 10 room. Because especially if you're painting over flat, you'll want to have 2 coats. But any paint store will help you figure out how much paint to use. And you always want to have a little extra, like when you're done with your paint job, so that you can do touch-up. Okay, I'll be back to show you how the roller works. So now we're ready to roll. You take your roller holder thingy, I don't even know what this is called, and you slide your sheepskin roller on it and lock it in. And then you take a handy dandy, this is such a great tool, great tip. It's a little extender. It's like an extendo arm. So I'm going to call it an extendo arm. I don't know the name of it. The guys at the paint store will know the name of it. So you at the end of the roller holder, there's it just screws right in. And then, woohoo! You are tall and you can go all the way from the floor to the ceiling. But I want to show, well, this is the accent wall, so I'm not doing that wall. So we put 1 gallon of paint in the 5-gallon bucket with the really cool grid. You're going to love this. You might be able to angle it down. And what you do is you dip the roller a teeny weeny bit, and then you like gently roll it into it. Can you see that, Kayla? Mm-hmm. And you don't want to get too much on it. You should be able to do a couple of rolls without having to re-dip. So you gently do that. Don't ever angle it, because sometimes inside it fills up. If you angle it, it might drip, drip, drip. So I'm going to keep getting a little wetter. And now we're ready to roll. So this wall is cut in right here. So we start right at the edge, go all the way from the bottom to the top. Like pretend like this is already painted here. You just go close and don't touch the ceiling. Go all the way down. And you go out a couple inches, go back up and back down. I'm going to take some video of the accent wall. We're going to do that tomorrow, and we'll be able to see it better. So you go all the way up, all the way down, and you refill the roller. And you keep going. Okay, let's pretend like this whole wall's been done. You roll, 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 and then you come back with the dry roller and you re-roll the whole thing, and it makes it nice and even. Once you've rolled, let's say, half the wall, you come back and you roll it with the dry roll. See how it's kind of flaky and dry? That's good because it makes it nice and even instead of getting streaks. Okay, I think that's it for now. So when you're painting and you've already cut in and it's dry and you're painting wet, the two paints are going to look different because one is wet and one is dry. Give it a chance to dry before you get too concerned. And what was my other tip? Oh, when you have, like the baseboards are taped, when you have tape on anything, don't let it sit for days or weeks. One time my mom, I don't know who painted her house, she had masking tape on the windows outside. Whoever painted didn't use just cutting in with the brush. Anyways, it was on there for weeks and it was stuck. The masking tape was stuck on her windows because it was Phoenix, probably in the summertime, and she had to use a razor blade and hand take off the tape on masking tape on all her windows. So don't leave tape on for days. Take it off that same day or the next day whenever you are finished with the painting, because too much time passes, it's going to be stuck. Okie dokie, see you again. So I want to show you when you put paint on your brush, you dip it halfway, you tap it on the side, and then you gently take a little bit like that. So it's not, this brush holds a ton of paint, so that's not all drippy. You like take a little bit of paint off. And then you can start painting. Look at that beautiful angle of that brush. Oh, isn't that gorgeous? Just gorgeous. So when you're painting a room, you need a little space. This is almost not enough space because with the extender on it, it's hard to get. So if it's hard to get to a spot, you just take the little extender off and you paint without the extender. And then if you ever have to leave, you dip your roller in the paint, and then you have a little handy little hook right there on the actual roller holder, and you hook it right onto the grid, and it works beautifully as a holder. But you don't want to leave it there too long before, like with the brushes, you just totally submerge it in the water. Thanks. So you're done cutting in, and you have paint in your bucket. You pour it into the big bucket. And you totally let this dry. And afterwards, after it's all dry, you can peel off the paint. Unless it's a flat paint, you can't peel off the flat. It just makes a mess. But a semi-gloss satin finish, it will peel off and your bucket will be nice and clean. Hey guys, I want to show you a close-up of the baseboard work. So you take your tape and you put it right up to the wall. And press the tape down. Right up to the wall, covering the baseboard. And sometimes the baseboard has dust on it, so you want to wipe off the baseboards with your finger or a paper towel. And if you use a wet paper towel, you want to let it dry before putting the tape on there. And then you can put your drop cloth right up to it. And when you start painting, when you start cutting in, this is going to be the accent wall. We are going to, I'm going to show you what you could do if you accidentally get paint on a wall that you don't want the paint on. You can wipe the paint off while it's still wet. On a flat wall, it might not be as easy, but you want to dip your brush like halfway, scrape a little off, and work with that. So you want to go right up to the wall that's not being painted. You want to go beyond the wall that you're painting so that it looks like a straight line when you're right on it. So you use a nice brush that fits your hand for it to do the cut in. And you want to cut in about 2 inches before you roll it so that you don't have to roll right up to the wall. And because this is a flat wall, we are going to do a second coat of this. We're actually not doing a second coat when it was the same color going over the same wall, but we are with the accent wall because it's such a dark color. See how I put it onto the ceiling? You just squish into the corner. When you have a tight spot, like below a light switch that's low, and there's only this kind of space, sometimes it's easier just to paint this area instead of trying to roll it, because rolling it might be awkward. This actually isn't too bad of a space, because some spaces are super duper tight. And then when you have baseboard, you just take paint right up to the baseboard and you do that. If you're going to take a break, you make sure you dip your paintbrush in your paint so it's nice and wet before you leave so that it doesn't dry hard. So I want to show you what to do when you're rolling the wall and you don't want to get too close to the side, and at the ceiling you don't go all the way to the ceiling. If you do accidentally go all the way to the ceiling, you take a paper towel and you get it wet and you can wipe it off the ceiling. If it's not, even if it's flat paint, it might be able to come off. You just don't want to roll all the way to the ceiling. And you go all the way up, all the way down. And because it's a flat wall going semi-gloss, it's going to take more paint than if you were painting semi-gloss over semi-gloss. It doesn't take as much. So you're going to have to dip a lot. And then you go back over it when you're done with the wall with the dry roller. And you roll all the way back. And we're actually going to see if we can just do one coat. I'm not sure yet. But like I said before, it's just paint. And you can redo it if you want. If you don't like it, redo it. When I was a little girl, I remember people would say, "Oh, you don't want to paint the walls. What if you sell your house?" Well, what if 20 years goes by before you sell your house? So now I know people aren't afraid to paint their house walls because of resale value. Oh, and when you go back over it with a light stroke, you just gently roll it so you don't have the streak lines. All right, good luck. If you're taking a break and you're waiting for your coat of paint to dry, not that I would know that or anything, just kidding. We're waiting for a wall to dry to see if we need to put a second coat on. You dip your roller in the paint and then you let it sit there, but don't let it sit too long or you'll ruin your roller. But if you're going to be coming right back to it, you're going to let it sit in the paint for 10-15 minutes and then come back to painting again. If it's going to be a longer time than that, you need to put the roller in water. Totally submerge it in water, like this one right here is submerged with some brushes and the other roller from yesterday. And a project, a bedroom, could take a day, it could take 2 days, just depends on how much time you have to do it. Alrighty, bye-bye. Hey guys, so I think the wall is done, the room is done, and we're waiting for it to dry to see if we need a second coat. But I just want to say good luck with painting, have fun, and have a great day. Bye-bye. So after you've been all done, I forgot to show you how to peel off the tape. So let's pretend like there's paint on this. You just painted, and you just peel the masking tape right off, and it's good to go. And you fold up your drop cloths, and I'm going to show you how to clean your brushes in just a second. Hey guys, when you're taking the blinds off the walls, the windows, you flip that little flipper up, slide it out, pull the other side out, and voila, no paint on your blinds. I'm putting it back. Slip it in, slide that in, flip it down. Hey guys, so your room is painted and you have all your brushes and rollers in a bucket of water. And I'm going to show you how you clean them. And you don't want to do this inside unless you don't have a place, and maybe in your bathtub. So maybe you could do it in your bathtub if you don't have the tools to have an outside. So you're letting your bucket dry, and your grid, you don't need to hose it off. It just dries also. And you can paint a lot of stuff before you have to get rid of the grid where it is all caked full of paint. So you take your brush that's been soaking, or it doesn't have to soak that long, and you take your hose and you do this. You clean it just like this. You get all that paint off of it. It's kind of hard. Let's see. You go like this. And I hate wasting water. I'm going to clear it up with that. Flick it. Take it off some more. And you bring it up and put the water up into the inside of it. And flick all that water out of it. and then you just let it dry. And it's good to go when it's all straightened out. And then you take your roller and you very carefully taking it off of its roller holder, and you just clean this up. And the inside will have paint too. And you flick it. And you can roll it on a tree, getting all that water off. Here, I'll show you what I mean. Let me turn this water off and I'll flick it dry. So if you have a tree, you roll it on the tree and kind of get yourself a little wet. But it does a nice job of getting all that out. I got all the paint out. And you can reuse these for years, and eventually they do get old. But that's how you clean brushes and rollers. All right, happy painting. I wish you well. Bye-bye. Don't be afraid. Don't be afraid of painting. Bye-bye.